Hi everyone, welcome to week 3 of your Medical Language 1 course. This week we are covering Chapter 8. Chapter 8 is entitled Orthopedics, and what that means is that we're going to be discussing two different body systems. We're going to be looking at both the skeletal system and the muscular system. So when we look at the skeletal system, we're going to look at all of the different pieces and parts of that system. So we're looking bones. That's what we're talking about here, is everything having to do with the bones and the diseases and things that affect the bones. And then we're going to also look at the muscular system, because those two are so completely interrelated. So we're going to look at the same thing with them. We're going to look at all of the different types of muscles, how they work together with the skeletal system, and some of the diseases and processes and systems and all of that as it relates to the muscular system. So first things first, let's look at the skeletal system. Most of us are familiar with the skeletal system, the fact that we have 206 bones, and then in addition to that, we have cartilage and we have ligaments. And it's the basic structural support of our body, and it has to work with our muscles, which is why we're looking at them together, to help maintain posture, helps us move, protects our organs. Those are just some of the many functions of the skeletal system. So again, typically we think of the skeletal muscular system or the musculoskeletal system, but what really we want to do is we want to look at this in one. We want to look at anything and everything about all of these pieces and parts and how they work together, or in some cases don't work together, right, if there's a problem. So let's look first at the axial skeleton. That's what we think of when we think of the skeleton. We think of the bones of the head, the bones of the chest, the bones of the back. We add to that the appendicular skeleton, which is the shoulders, arms, hips, and legs. And then the head, the bones of the head, the cranium, the facial bones, and things like that. So when we put all of those together, that comprises the skeletal system. Most of us are aware that the head itself, the cranium, consists of 8 different bones. And this is just a good picture to kind of show you some of those bones that make up the skull. There are 12 separate bones that make up the face. So keep in mind, the skull and the face, we're talking about 2 separate things here. So this is where you get into things like the jawbone, the mandible, and things like that. Okay, so here's a front look at the face and those different bones that make up the face. Remember, skeletal, the skull is what you might think of as like the top and the back of your head, whereas when we talk about the bones of the face, that's exactly what it is, the facial bones, right? And then these are just examples of how we locate them, just like we did before when we talk about the parts of the body, front, back, left, right, that kind of thing. Again, we're going to be looking at those naming conventions when we look at the parts of the skeleton. Then we also have a few other bones that are found in the head, and those are the bones of the ear. So they've listed those here. Most of us know them as, the stirrup and the anvil and that kind of thing, but these are the actual names of those particular bones. Now, again, and I'm kind of going through this very quickly, keep in mind that the idea isn't for you to memorize all 206 bones or any of those types of things. The idea is to kind of have a general idea of these, as well as, and of course, more importantly, probably in some cases, the different disease states and how we treat them as it relates to both the skeletal system and the muscular system. Okay, so let's just take a quick jump, because again, they're going to go through all of the different parts of the skeletal system, where they're located, which ones are which, and all of that. So as you go through the next several slides, those are the types of things that you're going to see. We're going to basically go through all of the different bones of the skeleton, where they are, what do they look like, what are their shapes, and things like that. But what I really want you to jump to now, after you do that, is what are some of the things that happen? Like, how does a bone grow? So that's what the next section is going to be about, is the physiology of bone growth. So where is new bone formed? You might have heard of growth plates before. Growth plates are very important, because if you damage a growth plate, that keeps your bone from growing. So that's what we talk about when we talk about growth plate. And then we're also going to look at things like diseases of the bones. So things like tumors, obviously. We're going to look at the breaks. What do we call the different types of fractures? What does it look like? How do we pronounce it? Those types of things. That's going to be everything that you could have ever wanted to know about bones in the first part of this particular chapter. And then we're going to get into a little bit more of what happens with those joints and ligaments, right? So when we talk about arthritis, gout, those types of things are going to be included in the last part of this particular chapter. So as you go through this, if you're having any problems or questions, please make sure that you reach out to me, and have a great week.